Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Revival Live. I am your host, Irfan Shahid. Joining me in the studio today is my esteemed guest and friend, Mort, from the show Muzzy Buzz and the Mad Mamluks.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Pleasure to be here. Honor to be here. I love the studio.
Thank you. I can't
It's
wait.
a very intimate setting. Yeah, I like it.
Very intimate, right?
I feel like our studio at the Mad Mamluks is like so bright. And this is really like, I kind of feel like getting in the mood, like, you know, like
It's velvety, right?
it reminds me of one of those like those halakha that you'd have in a basement somewhere that nobody should know about. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those deep down,
Clandestine.
clandestine. Yeah, totally.
It's a very upfront, in-your-face response, and upfront, in-your-face, ironclad.
Give it to me straight, no BS. Just tell it as it is.
No, absolutely, because we can't afford to have that gray area in our kids' minds.
I think that's exactly what made a lot of confusion come about. That the fact that there was never this clear, absolute, unambiguous stance that, hey, we're not, unapologetic stance. That,
Right,
hey,
right.
this is who we are,
An
like it or
exceptional
not.
stance.
Exactly, and so that led to younger people kind of saying, well, it's not really that clear, so we have some wiggle room here. And I think what we want to come across, the point that we want to get across right now is that there's absolutely no wiggle room. Like, this is just something that either we fix now or it runs out of control, and you're going to lose an entire next generation of people. Because it starts with the LGBTQ, the Transformer Army, right? But they're only starting with that. This is only the starting point. These people have been planning these kinds of ideological battles for decades. They literally have it mapped out in how they want to do
This
it.
was like so. If you look at the progress, I don't think a lot of people don't know how far back this goes. This, like, for me, being born in the early '80s, this, might have been a little bit before my time, but like you had Three's Company, right, and then you had like this Jack character, and we didn't know what we were watching, and I don't want to tell people to go watch it. It's just filth.
Yeah.
But for America, they were prepping America for this.
So I'll say this. I've noticed this thing. So first they started with the women, right? They first said that, you know what, feminism is what you need. And it's ironic because prior to the 1960s, the feminist movement was more about like, okay, let's just give women the right to work and vote and have property, right? Something Islam already gives women, right? The Kafir women never had that. Christianity doesn't give them anything, so you can understandably see why they wanted to fight.
There's
for
a
some
reaction
right.
from
Right.
Christianity, right?
Right. But then what they did is they realized that, apparently what their main focus of feminism, the core creators of this idea, was they were like, they were communistic. A lot of them had communist ideas, right? But the idea was that it wouldn't be profitable for them to do that. So they realized that that we're going to try to...
You mean restrict the marketplace to just men was not profitable?
Right. So what they wanted to do is they decided to take the capitalistic approach. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they said, you know what? Women, you don't need men. You can work yourself. You can do everything you want to do. And effectively what they did is they turned half the population, which are men, right, into enemies, but yet at the same time tried to make them allies, meaning that you have to fight for women's rights. Because essentially what happened was it was men that gave women their rights, right? Because these were lawmakers, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, men granted them these rights in the states.
So I wouldn't frame it that way. The way I would say is like secularism and capitalism gave it to them because it was in its interest.
Yes, but I'm saying...
But they framed it that way.
Yeah, but the intention of this group originally was not that. I mean, the powers that be definitely let it grow within those spaces. Yeah. But their original idea was, okay, we're going to challenge this whole, capitalism thing. But then they decided to challenge the patriarchy. Right, it moved from capitalism to patriarchy. Right. And the patriarchy was okay. Effectively, now half the world's population, you're against them, but then now you get them on board to support your case. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So the reason why I mention this is this because then you had the birth of the sexual revolution, right? Do what you need to do. Don't worry about it. You can have, without consequence, go and get, have a bunch of babies, abort them if you want to, no problem, right? Now, the issue then comes into play here is that what happens then you see media reflecting that. Why is that important? Because when they put women at the forefront, because if you look at things like the Lucy Ball show, right? It was always the woman at home, the homemaker. Andy Griffith.
I Love
show.
Lucy. You're talking
right.
about.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I Love Lucy.
Ball, yeah.
Right. And then but even Andy Griffith, mother at home.
Yeah.
Right now out there working, father does it. Right. But they changed it to now women being independent.
Yeah.
And what did that do? At the same time, what they did was, for example, like Three's Company, you have this obscure third character who's not really, he's not a masculine man.
No.
He's a effeminate man. Right?
No.
And it became very normalized that all of these fashionable women and independent women had gay friends. It was very acceptable. Oh, he's just gay. Don't worry about it. He's going to make my hair. He's my makeup artist. He's my fashion designer.
Right.
But he's gay in the background.
Right.
But they enabled that whole gay character.
Right.
And that made it acceptable in tandem with the whole feminist revolution.
Right. And then they had the Mr. Farley character, right? Mr. Farley would come in and he would always be suspicious of what's going on here. And they vilify him. They vilify him like, oh, he represents all the traditional values, right?
Yeah, like the typical, the fat guy who's just stuck in his ways, loser, just totally mocking him that way, right? Like what they do is they embody the traditional principles in this very loser type man, right?
Right, Mr. Farley.
And they make him portray him as an angry man who's just even if you look at
and then well, I want to continue this paradigm because then you had Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Before that, you had Oz, where you had a prison culture of men having they would throw in these little snippets of normalizing the fact that, oh yeah, if you go to jail, totally normal, you get banged by a guy, totally normal, right? And they did these things where they were dropping these hints that, and then it started being okay, well. Then they came out with things like Brokeback Mountain.
Brokeback Mountain was a huge thing. And,
it kind of shifted the whole screenplay. Right. And then it's just now.
Will and Grace. Will and Grace was a huge one.
Another one too, right. And then 2.5 Men, right?
2.5 Men.
And if you think about that now, that title today would be so offensive to so many of these woke people because half a man, what do you mean half a man?
Right.
I'm non-binary. You know what I mean? Whatever the hell that means, right? But they literally took on what people would say and they made a show name out of it. Half a man. You know what I mean?
2.5 Men. Right. Well, and then you had but it's like a paradigm. They cultured everybody. Whether you're Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. They cultured the whole world out of this, and
it was planned though.
It was planned.
It was methodical in the way that they introduced the ideas. They subtly did it, and then they started. Once you got used to these ideas, they brought them. They tested it even further, and they brought them more to the front and more to the front.
Right. They made it safe first, right?
Yeah.
Because you had the AIDS pandemic in the '60s, and people were really scared, right? So it was the wrong time to push it.
70s and 80s. I mean, my mom was a nurse, and they were terrified of what AIDS was. People didn't want to treat people at all because they were like, oh, what is this thing?
Right. And you had
60s and 70s was those filthy bathhouses in San Francisco where they started this gay culture.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's when they got into this thing where it was, it was very known in Hollywood to have these gay people that would have these weird provocative dressings and very flamboyant that whole type of thing.
Sure.
Right? And then it was kept into the elite circles.
Right. You had the David Bowie and all that, right? and the drag type rock and roll star.
David Bowie's a great example. The guy that put on
Freddie
makeup,
Mercury.
right? I mean, they were exactly. They were seen as entertainers.
Right.
Oh, he's so
It's not part of
flamboyant.
society. It's just entertainment.
He's just an entertainer.
Who's a piano guy, Liberace.
Yeah, all these, many of these artists
Yeah.
were in that category of people,
Right.
Like fashion designers, all these people. It was very understandable. Why? Because they're eccentric people. They're just different.
Yeah.
Right?
They're silly.
Yeah.
They're not to be taken
You
seriously.
would never
They're
see-
safe. Look how fun they are.
Right, yeah.
When you welcome them into your
They're
house.
just in a bubble where they just.
You welcome them through the radio. You welcome
Yeah.
them through the telly, and
But it was never there's a gay CEO. Or there's a gay entrepreneur that you're going to highlight. Or a gay athlete.
RuPaul, you have RuPaul. And then who was the guy in Britain that had all the child sexual assault allegations against him who did the children's show? You remember who that was? He was the Pee Wee Herman
Pee Wee Herman
of
was
Britain.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his
should
name.
I look him up?
Was it the Mr. Bean dude? No, I don't know.
British.
I don't know.
British TV show host, child.
But this was very normal.
Predator.
The point being is, while you're looking that up, it was very
Jimmy
normal.
Savile. Jimmy Savile.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Remember Jimmy Savile?
Yes.
So let me. Well, so yeah, it's a very systematic, very methodical. Like you actually had a movie. Like it must have been like these their academics and movie directors got together and said, "Let's culture the nation." And it's like a 60-year plan.
No, but what I'm saying is that literally there's books out there that talk about the movement and the originators of the movement, and they laid out step-by-step plans. And this is exactly how it's unfolding.
Right.
Like this is not a hidden secret. They plan to do it this way, and so this is just the plan in fruition right now. It's just coming to fruition, and so the idea is that now that they're because to be honest, the most protected community in this country, at least, is that whole transformer and LGBTQ.
Right.
You know, the LGTV and the transformers are all everywhere, right?
Right.
And you can make fun of blacks, women, Muslims, it doesn't matter, anybody else. But when it comes to them,
Right.
all hell breaks loose.
Right.
And despite them being the fraction of the population,
Right.
like in reality, they're like less than 1% of the people, right?
Right.
I mean, we're not talking about those confused kids that identify as actually. We're talking about practicing sodomites and people who actually live that lifestyle.
Right.
Very little, but they have a huge overrepresentation.
Well, so where I'm getting at with this angle is that this methodical deconstruction of social values, it leads to a certain mindset, a secularized mindset of even Muslims, right? And let me just put it up on the screen here. We got Jimmy Savile up on the screen. No, let's do the Reclaiming Islam letter here. That's it was put out by I don't maybe you could shed some light on this. The people who signed this letter. Are you aware of these people? Are these people influential?
Just look at their
Are
professions.
they a bunch of nobodies?
Just look at their professions. Read them out.
David Hill, Muslim. Esteban Guest, supporter. I don't know these people.
No, but look at how they're defining themselves. Supporter, engineer. Like, what does that mean?
Mahnur Youssef, and then it's director and very Muslim.
Very Muslim.
Very Muslim. Believer.
And believer and student, by the way.
Believer and student. So what? So you're identifying yourself as a by your profession.
Queer Muslim, if you look at that.
Yeah.
Well, actor, director, writer, queer Muslim.
Queer Muslim. Where's that one?
Just go down a few more. More.
Curator.
Right there. Actor, director, writer, queer Muslim.
Oh, Salika Khan, something.
Student. Actor. Believer. This guy, the middle guy, Yusuf didn't even write anything.
Toyin, he doesn't exist.
He's like, whatever.
Toyin, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's your... Did I just misgender you? I don't know. I'm sorry.
It seems like they got a bunch of nobodies and just to beef up the list.
But here's the scary part. They got together. Yeah. They created a platform. Yeah. They could be a bunch of nobodies. It doesn't matter. But they got together. They created a platform, and that means that they were looking for each other to create this platform, right? Mm-hmm. So this is, it's...
I think the final signature on this whole thing is that Lanatullah alayha amana wadud.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The very final ending, I think you're gonna find toward the end. You'll find amana wadud there. Who's like?
Well, look at what they're trying to do. What's the purpose of doing it this way? Writer, truck driver. It's people from doctor, artist, actor, devout Muslim student, engineer, designer, doctor. What was the point of doing it this way? This had to have been intentional. Everybody who signed on to this.
What did I say?
Why?
Hey, what's the one? This one, the angel? What did I say? Right there. The Jamie. Is that? I can't read it from here. No, go down. Your mouse is just over it. Go down. Further. It starts with a J. After right there.
Jawaria?
Yeah.
Ally, angel, and actor.
Angel?
I don't know what angel is. I don't know if that was like the LGBTQ.
She literally thinks she's an angel. Oh, great. Now we have the Malaika, Jojo. I mean, that's what they're trying to imply.
God, bro, it just gets crazier and
if
crazier.
That's not an indication of absolute delusion, like how deluded these people are,
right?
Then, I mean, what is? What isn't? I mean...
Look at this one. Practicing Muslima of color.
That's another thing that bothers me, too. This whole person of color thing.
So lawyer. So what is the purpose of it? So I think again they're just trying to say, hey, look, we're everybody. We're everybody. We're like you. We're regular Muslims, just like you. We're living in your towns. We're your bakers. We're your teachers. We're, this has nothing to do with a special interest group, or it's not like George Soros funded, some kind of billionaire interest group.
It's the average everyday
No,
Muslim.
it's because so what they're doing by this is
What-
actually
what-
selling sincerity.
No, what
Like,
they're trying to do is say that this document isn't written by a bunch of ivory tower scholars. It's signed by everyday average Joes, like the people who are in touch with the average Muslim.
And then look over here at the end. It says, "Add your name. It will appear after it has been vetted and screened. This process may take several days." So, they want more and more people to add their name to this, and so they can, show that this is the popular opinion. And we're here to say that no, this is a fringe. It's not grounded in any Islamic belief. Let's get back to the camera because I don't want to annoy the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, first of all, I can guarantee you that none of these people who are present or writing their names are regular members of any community. You will never find them in a masjid. You'll never find them in a conference.
Should we Facebook one of the random names on there? No, I don't want to get doxxed.
Yeah, I don't want to dox people. Because then what they're going to say is, oh, these guys, Revival Live is trying to dox people and kill us. Right? I mean, we don't want any of that stuff.
No, we don't want
Don't go Googling these names.
We want to invite them back to Islam.
Because we ultimately
want
believe...
to tell them, listen, this is not okay. It's not what's grounded in the Quran and Sunnah. What makes you a Muslim is your belief in the Quran and Sunnah and your belief in Allah, the angels, submitting to the rules in the Quran and Sunnah. And, let's go back to it intellectually, right? Reaffirming Islam, reclaiming Islam. So
I want to look through their arguments.
So, but look at the word reclaiming. So, reclaiming is a word you choose that something was perverted from its original state. So they are actually saying that this narrative is the original state of Islam.
Right.
And it was hijacked by the current...
By the patriarchy.
By the patriarchy, or whatever it is.
No, they literally argue that. These people who write this, they say that we have to reinterpret Islam or bring it back to the original away from the patriarchal understandings of Islam.
Right.
Like, it was written by a male-centric view, and this is why Islam is corrupted.
And now they have to return it back to the prophetic.
And that's why they actually, some of these same people will argue that Allah could be referred to as a she, waliyadu billah.
Right.
They say that, he's non-binary, and so it's translated to be he, but he could also be a she. And so, but this patriarchal dominance over literature in Islam and preservation of Islamic literature is what led to this male-dominated language. But I mean, what I'm saying is that these are the same people who believe that, so naturally they're going to think in their mind that it's been perverted. Like, they don't think that what they're trying to insinuate is that the story of Qawm Lut is not about, they're going to argue it's not about sodomy.
Yeah, they say it's about rape.
It's about rape. And it's about the arrogance and other sins.
Right.
But it's not about actually sodomizing people. Right? Where we know that according to the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this, he talks about the people of Lut alayhi salam and says this is the first time in the history of the mankind that this kind of fahisha was done. It was never done before this. And fahisha is something despicable. It is one of these things that it is a corrupter of society, right? It's fawahish, meaning that
perversion,
perversion
from the human nature itself, right?
It's a corruption of the fitrah, entirely. And this is the first time it's done. So if Allah is mentioning it's the first time that they've done something like this, what were they known for? They were known for their sodomy, right? And so Allah is mentioning that this specific action is a fahisha, but they see it differently.
Well, so in the just going back to the document, they have a list of rights.
And I think the question here is, where do those rights come from?
The rights. What it is it's actually forming its own religion.
Yeah.
right? So it says in here, a sustainable, beautiful, climate-conscious planet that protects animals, plants, and humans. A just, anti-racist society that fights all discrimination on the basis of race, sex, sexuality, religion, ethnicity, age, or ability. The right of all humans to practice their own religion freely without discrimination and persecution. The right to safe and equitable housing for all. The right to universal health care. The right to sustainable, clean, and healthy food for all. The right to free, equitable, and secular education for all. Freedom from financial exploitation. Freedom from sexual exploitation. Freedom from oppression, injustice, and tyranny. Okay.
So let's start with few of them.
Wait, Islam gives us our rights. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the rights. He gave the rights of the women, he gave the rights of the man, the husband, the women, the children, the fathers, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained to us what our rights and roles are in society. They're inventing their own religion here.
Yeah, but what I want to come back to is
that's what I wanted to produce was that secularism and this whole thing is a religion in and of its own.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what I want to point out as well too is that there's contradictory statements here. And if you look up the one where it says that we believe that people should have the right to practice all the religions they want to practice. There should be no discrimination, right? What does it say? Read that again. About religion. People
the right of all humans to practice their own religion freely without discrimination or persecution.
Okay. So what if I come up with a religion today that says that all, brown people are evil?
Right.
Not blacks and whites are good, browns are evil.
Right.
That's my religious view.
Right.
Right? And God only loves white and black people.
Right.
Right? Okay? So that's a religion now. You can't tell me what a religion is.
Right. Well, the Aztecs did human sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
There's
under the
that
guise
did human sacrifice. You're going to respect that one too?
No, I'm saying under their pretense, of what a religion is. They can't define it, right?
Right.
Everyone has their own beliefs, right? So if I come with my own religion tomorrow, right? Because they're not limiting it to Abrahamic religions or whatever. They're saying all religions. So if I were to come and say that, yes, okay, all brown people are evil, and that they're, the fact that we shouldn't give them jobs and whatever it is, right? They're going to naturally advocate against that. Why? Because it doesn't line up with other values in their document, that the freedom to not be oppressed or whatever, economic, whatever it may be. So clearly they haven't, they've said a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
It's just feel-good points, right? But what does it actually mean? And this is where we say when we come back to Quran and Sunnah is that the Quran and Sunnah defines what these things actually are. What are the rights?
Right.
What does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be, to have freedom? Or what does it mean to be allowing speech? Or what does freedom of choice actually mean? Islam defines the context of that. What does a deen actually, what is it actually in Islam, right? The definition of all of these words are given to us from the Quran and Sunnah. Right now, they're just arbitrary terms, right? What you say as a religion, what I say as a religion are two different things. I mean, I'm when referring to them, right? What they talk about is human rights, right? Under their understanding of human rights, that also means the right to plow another dude in the butt, right? That's not mine, right? No, I mean, that's not my human right. I mean, I don't view that as a human right.
Right.
So what are you actually arguing here, right? So again, this is the problem with these documents. Because of the fact that they don't actually know what they're calling for, there's no actual framework. They don't know how to define these things.
What they're at the end, what they're doing is they're working on behalf of a secular government to secularize groups of people that have beliefs and values that go against the secular government. So they are trying to take that Islam, the Aqidah of Islam, away from us. Essentially, that's what it is. Whether they know it or not doesn't matter to me. But this is how I view it as a Muslim. That this narrative, that this the people who signed this Reclaiming Islam document, they're falling into whether they're falling into the trap or they're wholehearted in it. They're trying to secularize all other Muslims, right? What was your need to speak up as Muslims, right? Because the beginning of the thing says we are the beginning of their document says we are the Muslims who represent approximately 2 billion believers and allies. Wait, you don't represent me. You don't represent me.
Yeah, not at all.
the Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma Sahaba, the Hadith. That's what I believe in, right? The Qiyas. Those are the four sources of Sharia, and that's what I believe in. I believe in the traditional scholars who have been accepted as the scholars of the Muslim Ummah throughout history. The wide breadth of scholars. I follow those people, and that's what most of the 2 billion people follow.
So that's an interesting point. So here's the thing. Generally, what has protected Islam in the Western world is precisely what you just mentioned. The fact that we're firmly rooted in tradition, and that we have forget about the differences about Ash'ari, Athari, all these things, or different fiqha, but it's rooted in Quran and Sunnah. Even the Quran mentions that you have to ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Those in power or authority above you. If you have a difference there and between them, then what do? فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولُ. Go back to Allah and His Messenger. Absolutely. Right? Now, why do I mention this? They're trying to eliminate tradition. Why? Because that's exactly the moment when Christianity and Judaism failed. Because meaning where they were able to take them. For example, what do I mean by that? Traditionally in Christianity, where did it start? It started in the Eastern world, right?
Looking at the camera.
What was that?
Looking at the camera. Talk to the audience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Christianity started in the Eastern world, right?
Right.
And so the Eastern church today versus the Western church, which is pretty much Protestantism, what is the key difference? The key difference is that the Eastern tradition holds and maintains that they have church fathers and they have church saints and writings that are extra biblical, but they're very, very important. The Protestants and the Calvinists, they believe that no, they are sola scriptura, which means that they're pretty much what you would call the equivalent in Islam is the Quran only. They only believe in the Bible. And what they do is they say that they can interpretate the Bible because the Holy Spirit puts it on them. You hear all these evangelicals. The Lord told me today. Jesus put it on my heart today. The Holy Spirit put it on my heart today that I have to do this today or I have to do that. And so what they've done is they've taken away tradition, and everybody can interpretate what they want to interpret it as. And that's why today you have this problem of Western Christianity that you can do anything you want to do and just scream Jesus, and that's it. Right? Meaning that today now that's why you have churches flying these queer flags, right?
Well, did you see that the Catholic bishop in UK, he told the Ugandans that they should stop the Ugandan laws from being passed that stop homosexuality.
Yeah, exactly. And then the thing is that also if you look at even Reform Judaism, right? They're also saying, hey, Torah alone. We don't care about the Mishnah and the Gemara and all the rabbinical writings. We can understand it just fine from the Torah. And they've shed away a lot of the laws and traditions and normal behavior that would have been done by the Jews. And what prevented the Muslims from falling into that in the Western world was that we didn't have that concept. We were very firmly rooted in tradition. We pride ourselves in the fact that we have 1,400 years of Islamic tradition, an unchanged Quranic manuscript that we can definitively rely on. And they're trying to effectively remove that by saying, oh, we have to challenge this patriarchal understanding. We have to re-understand what the Quran is saying. What are they trying to do? They're trying to separate you from scholarship. And what does Allah say about that? When Allah intends to remove knowledge from the people, He takes it away from the scholars away from them. Right. So this is what they're trying to do.
Right. You saw the Orthodox Jews were protesting, I believe, like 2 weeks ago. 5 Pillars covered it in the UK, and so we're not just seeing this in Islam. We're seeing this across the board in Christianity. We're seeing it in Judaism.
Eastern Christians are definitely against it. Like if you look at Russia,
you saw the Armenians fight in California. Glendale, there was a fight.
Yeah. These freak Antifa losers thought they could just intimidate people. They were just, armchair like revolutionaries. They thought they'd put a mask on their face, make them scary, and a real man taught them what happens, right? And that's the reality with most of these freaks out there, that they think that they can intimidate people by numbers and by screaming and shouting and putting on things and slogans. But real men, when they are confronted with a real threat to their family, they will defend them at any cost.
Absolutely.
And that's referred to, this is what we say, right? Because they will refer to that as patriarchal, as misogynistic, as toxic, right? But in Islam, we find that as qawama.
Right.
When someone is trying to throw harm onto your family and your community, Allah commands you to get up and do something about it. You have to speak against it. You have to warn against it. We're not a nation of people that sit by idly and wait for the adab of Allah to come.
So that was my problem with the navigating differences document. It didn't go far enough, and
I mean, I can
may Allah guide them. I don't want to create division.
Yeah.
And but they need to re-examine that. And
I think it's a start, and I do agree that there should be more forceful. I mean, more a little bit more forceful. But I think as a starting document, that I would consider a working document, it was done well enough for me right now. They were very clear about the position of Muslims, that this is not something. There's no room for it in Islam at all. Yeah. And I think that needs to be made known, like to younger generations.
Yeah, well, so and we can respectfully disagree here. I wish they went a little bit further, and because to me, I sense that there's still an allyship there with the with the narrative that the signatories signed for their for whatever their political agendas are, or whatever their aspirations are. That and I'm not saying they're greedy or insincere. What I'm saying is whatever their ideas are, they're confusing enjoying the good and forbidding the evil versus tolerance. Like, no, I want to draw a very clear line that tolerance is we tolerate what is
there's no tolerance for sin.
What is mutually acceptable behavior, we tolerate that. So if they want, and the Sharia gives us what that is. It's like, okay, if they want to eat pork, if they want to slaughter pigs in their quarters, then they're allowed to do so. They can drink in their own homes. The Sharia gives us certain tolerances for things that are haram to us, but Allah has made them in certain conditions allowed for them. Like, I just mentioned those things, but
I think
this behavior being loud and proud.
Yeah, I know. I think the first part of the documentation was done to lay out what does Islam say about this lifestyle, and I think in that regard they laid out the idea that there's no wiggle room in Islam for homosexuality and sodomy and the queer stuff. There's no, and they even mentioned there are people out there who are trying to say that there's a version of Islam that incorporates it, and they were clear saying that they cannot rectify these two. However, my problem with the document is this. When it comes to appealing to policymakers, lawmakers, I don't agree with that. We don't need their approval, nor should we try to argue from their framework.
No,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's my issue. That, hey, you know what? It should have been more like, we're not here to join hands and enjoin the rights for everybody. What we're here to say is that we expect you to give us to follow the law that you made. That we have the right to practice our religion. Right, that's all we're asking. This is something you made. We're not demanding it from you. We're not trying to say we want to work with that. But this is what you said. So we're asking you to stay true to your word, right? And let us have our own. Leave us alone, right? And I think that would have been a more direct response rather than saying, "Oh, we're willing to work with hands with anybody who's willing to guarantee the religious practices and freedom to everybody." Because again, that's a very ambiguous term, right?
Right.
Because
it opens up a lot of room for
the queer Muslim can say he practices religious whatever, right? His freedom, right? Again, but that was my only issue with it. But I think as far as the legal Islamic Shari'i principle about what it means to be that and how to live that lifestyle, I think they were very clear about that. And I think that's what to be honest, to be fair, I don't think the document was meant to be like this political type thing. I think it was meant to be a declaration for people who were genuinely confused because you have all these freak groups out there and liberal, woke imams that are not taking a very clear stance on it, and people were generally confused. Can they be Muslim? Can they not? Can we accommodate them? Can we not?
Well, so in light of that, right? In light of that, let's look at this. You've seen this, right? The California bill that could punish parents for refusing to affirm the child's gender identity. Like this, I actually went to the website, and I mean, this is serious stuff.
This is evil.
What the bill actually says is that you could be charged with child abuse if you don't affirm your child's gender identity.
So what that means is that if your 7-year-old wakes up and says, "Mommy, I'm a she now," and it's a boy, just for one day, if you refuse to do that, and a teacher or a child advocate sees that, they can call Child Protective Services for abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, they're taking parenthood away from parents. It's
effectively what they're doing is they're confirming what people have been saying, that in America, the state owns your child. You don't own your child.
Yeah.
And this is directly related to an incident that happened in Montgomery County in Maryland, where a bunch of Muslims came out and protested. Why? Because in Montgomery County, what they're trying to do is in the next year, they're trying to enforce children to sit through the whole LGTV, the transformer agenda. Before, parents had the option to opt out. They could tell their children they want to opt out of these things and not attend. Montgomery County is trying to say that that's not possible. They have to go through the curriculum in order to get passing grades. Now, of course, this is a big thing, right? Because they're trying to force the LGBTQ thing, whatever, right? Whatever. But it sets a precedence. What happens, Irfan, if they come to say, you know what? Fine, we passed this one. Next year, we don't think you as a parent are doing a very good job about teaching your children about the realities of religion and God. So we're going to force your child to listen to a curriculum about how God doesn't exist and everything is fake and you've been lied to. And we're going to forcefully shove that down their throat and they have to listen.
That is an aqidah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if you set a precedence by saying they have to listen to the whole LGBTQ thing for understanding, they could make the same precedence for atheism and say, well, you have to understand that, atheists and science, they don't believe that God exists and your parents have been lying to you. And if they can force that down their throat.
They're already doing it in Norway, Sweden, Finland.
I get that, but what I'm saying is in America, if a teacher was doing that, a parent could opt out of that and say, I don't want them to sit through that class. Right? But if they're saying it, no, there's no opt-out option now.
Right.
What more can they push down the throat?
Right. I remember when we were in 5th grade and they would have that sex ed class, like you'd have to get the form signed by your parent and then you could opt for, okay, I want my kid to be in like a boys only class for it, or I don't want my kid to be in it at all.
At all, right. Yeah.
Right. And they're taking that away.
And to be fair, I think even when we were growing up,
I want to be the one who talks to my kids about this.
Yeah.
All right. This is between me and my children, and it's our belief, and I will transfer the beliefs that I hold to my children.
See, here's the thing, right? I agree 100%. And I would even argue that many of us who did go through that sex education course in when we were growing up,
that was different.
It's radically different. For us, it was not about the idea of, it wasn't hypersexual. It was like, okay, this is the private part of a woman. This is the private part of a man. This is how, it was more focused on the biological aspect. What the result of that is, how children are born, right? I remember for us, we just watched the video of kangaroo giving birth, and that was it. I mean, that was pretty much really after seeing the male thing in the textbook, right, and the female thing. They didn't show anything, real life picture or anything. It was like the kangaroo giving birth, and that was, okay, that's how babies are born kind of thing, right?
Right.
But now it's focused on, how do you please yourself? What does it mean to be gender? What's the best way to have an orgasm? Or, what age should you start masturbating? Right? That was never part of our curriculum. Right? And they're kind of associating the other sexually charged things with what is supposed to be there just to understand basic human biology.
So I remember when we were 16 and in high school, we read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Maya Angelou.
Oh, I remember that.
And there's some pretty graphic scenes in there. And I remember, like, our teacher was, like, saying that, she's discovering freedom, right? The whole thing was all about freedom. Okay, I'm going to pause it. Okay, good. We're recording again. Okay. So Maya Angelou is... I don't want to talk about the book and what it actually goes through, but it's like this girl who's exploring her sexual freedom, and we're a bunch of 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids. I didn't even know what was being, I didn't even know what was going on in the book, and then
we didn't get those.
And then I got sexualized by the teacher explaining what's going on. Like,
right, like we didn't get
why
those.
Why did you have to teach me that?
We didn't get those innuendos.
Right.
And then if it would have just left it at that, it would have just been like, an imagination, whatever. If someone came up with it, right? But I mean, again, that's the point, right? Why do teachers have to hypersexualize the content? If the whole purpose of sex education was, when we were younger, was to understand the anatomical body parts, because we're going through changes as young people. So it was to understand and what happens, and to understand how people procreate and where children come from. It was a basic. It was incorporated in part of biology. It wasn't meant to be just about sexuality, right? They've combined that now under the guise of sex education, because we have to protect them, because if they get older, if they don't know how to use condoms, they're going to have babies and they're going to get diseases, right? There's a lot of things.
They justified it through abstinence.
Should we teach them how to inject HIV? I mean, or like, heroin needles, because they might grow up to know how to do that, and then like they might spread needles around and get I don't know, AIDS that way. I mean, we don't do that with many other things. Why are we doing that now? Oh, I'm afraid my child is gonna get drunk and not know how to behave when getting drunk. So let's just get him drunk right now. Teach him how to do it.
Oh, well, I've heard that argument. Oh, European children are allowed to drink at 16. They know how to hold their liquor. So, and American kids don't know how to do it. So we should follow the Europeans. I've heard that argument actually being
absolutely
been
absurd
made,
argument.
Right, and it can go across the board to anything. Right, and what's unique is why is it targeted to these specific issues? So I personally, my belief is that this is not only a secular agenda; it's also a satanic agenda.
Sure,
it's absolutely a satanic.
I mean, there's
agenda.
definitely waswasa of the shaitan in their ears. Definitely,
there's the ayah in the Quran: "Shaitan ya'idukum al-faqra wa ya'murukum bil-fahsha." Ya'idukum. I don't want to say it, but the first part is that shaitan will promise nothing but the fakhra and the fahisha. So like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us this is part of their agenda, or part of the satanic agenda, and it just brings a whole nother dimension to it, that this has real consequences for your akhirah, for your family, for your well-being, for your reality, for your peace of mind, all the relationships you hold. It's all, they're stripping all of that away from you. And what is left of manhood after that? What is left? Like, what defines you as a man after that? Like, what, you see where I'm going with that? Like, they can push this agenda. Essentially, they're removing all gender norms.
So what's interesting is that Hassan al-Basri, when asked about what is manhood, he said it is a deen. Without deen, without religion, there's no manhood. So, what is left of manhood without religion? And what does that mean if you think about it at a fundamental level, right? Allah created you, and He knows your nature, so you act accordingly. Like, there's no better way to act than the way the Prophet, as a man, than the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam acts.
That's part of submission. Yeah.
And but see, again, the submission in Islam is natural. It's not a submission where you're like, oh, I feel antsy about it. If you were to take it, it's
there's ikhlas in it. There's like sincere, it is part you do it out of your own volition.
No, what I'm saying is that it's part of your fitrah.
Yeah.
When you come to it, it's a relaxing submission, meaning that for the most part, I'm talking about the concepts, like a man being a leader, protector, provider, woman being nurturer, raising children, right? Part of our men going out and working and doing things, right? Protecting these things, these dynamics that we see in society that we find as natural occurrences are part of our fitrah. Allah and the injunctions in the Quran complement them.
Well, let me ask you, what is the best response to the signatories of reclaiming Islam?
I thought about that a lot, and I think the biggest thing that people like this don't like is when you don't acknowledge them. Hear me out. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a refutation of the idea. The idea should thoroughly be refuted. But what they want to do is they want to come on platforms and have discussions with people like us, right? They want to be named. They want to be represented, right? And when you give them that representation, that's a victory for them. Right now, what is the one thing they complain about? Oh, we're hidden away. We're tucked away. We won't be silent. We're going to be here, right? Because they know that everyone just blows them off, right? Like, they're not taken serious, right? Like, what is a queer Muslim, right? Like, no one takes you serious, right? So what I'm saying is, in my opinion, is I don't think anybody should platform them. Should have a discussion with them. I think what we should do is take these ideas, like when we see the content that comes out, look at the material and thoroughly refute it academically and from Islamically, from both perspectives, and totally demolish. Because what we need to do is give our younger generation tools on how to combat the ideas. Because to be honest, half of these people are old freaks. Either they're gonna die soon, like from their old age, or they're gonna get some kind of weird disease from from their sexual escapades, or they're just gonna do some drugs. And I mean, they're not gonna be here very long, right? But the ideas will stay.
So you're saying, well, I want to re-quantify what you're saying. It's not a sustainable lifestyle. It's not a sustainable. It's not a.
And my main point is that people like this come and go. This is not the first time we've had weird people in Islam that brought ideas. Every time a deviant they had come to Islam, it has remained in the shadows. But what I'm saying is that these bad actors are here tomorrow, gone tomorrow. I mean, here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there will be new ones with new faces and new arguments, right? I mean, or I'm sorry, not new arguments, but new presentations. But the argument essentially stays the same. So it's better for us to combat and intellectually and Islamically refute and repel the ideas thoroughly, like by looking at what they're putting out there, and that way the younger generation has the tools necessary to combat it.
So that's certainly I would say that's the important thing, building the intellectual framework so that kids every Muslim and every family knows that they need to take their values and beliefs from Islam and from the Sharia and from the established ijma on these matters. But the other thing that I want to stress is that you have to put up a shield and know what your kids are being sensitized or desensitized to, right? When they're watching Miss Marvel, or they're watching Spider-Man into the whatever Spider-Verse or whatever it is, right? What are your kids absorbing? They make you bleed for the character. They make your heart bleed for the character, right? And then they interject that character with the values that they want to push onto your kids. So now your kids automatically sympathize with that character and they let that stuff into their heart.
Yeah.
And so they say, well, I feel bad for them.
Yes.
Well, if you really feel bad for them,
bring them
give
to
them
Islam.
Yeah. Give them Islam. Give them Islam. Say, we want Jannah for you. We want you to submit to Allah. We want Jannah for everybody. It's not just the LGBTQ. We want it for the capitalists. We want them to convert. We want them to submit. We want it for the communists. We want it for the atheists, the polytheists, and the Israelites and everybody. We want everybody. We want the whole world to come to Islam. Doesn't matter what.
We wish them well. We want them. We want goodness for them, right? And I think, to be honest, this is the emotional trapping that Hollywood has done very well, where they have been able to appeal and tap into people's emotions. To be honest, it doesn't only happen to young children. It happens even to us as adults. I'm not going to advocate the show, but there was a show that I used to watch called House of Cards, right? Okay. Kevin Spacey was the actor in there.
Right.
Okay. Season 1 starts off with like this really cunning, cutthroat politician who's exposing the underworkings of how politics work and all the stuff, and then you see the whole game and you kind of take a liking to the character because he's bold, he speaks his mind, he's always trying to get one up on everybody else. But it goes on to season 2, and what happens is that this is where I stopped watching the show. What happens is season 2, he's confronted with a lot of high stakes situations and pressure, and very oddly at the end, like his wife, in order to release his pressure, calls a Secret Service agent in, and apparently them two go in the bedroom together and get it on, right? And that was like the ending of the thing, but apparently that's how he was a stress releaser for him, right? And it was at that moment I thought like, A'udhu Billah, but I realized, I'm like, look what they've done. They built this character up for 2 years. Like he's a man, he's strong, he's taking charge, all this stuff. So you feel like he's a person you resonate with, right? As an alpha.
You aspire to
like
be,
an alpha, right? He's there,
you
right?
get inspired.
No, it's just he's an alpha man. So
Okay.
he's a man's man, right? He's out there. And then they just drop this like thing where he just has this gay moment, right? Where this gay sex moment, right? Where like they don't show the whole scene, but you get the idea that he's doing that with the guy. Like he's having, and in the moment when he's stressed out, and then after that he goes back to like his normal life. But the very thing that they did was like, oh, it's totally cool for an alpha to do it every once in a while. Like, there's no problem. He's still a man. Right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Right? And I realized what a devilish agenda. That you try to build this character up. Likeable. Empathize with him. Oh, I get it. I want to be, driven like that. Goal-driven. Powerful. Whatever. And then, it's cool, man. He's just a part-time Luthi.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They play with your heartstrings, right? They play with your heartstrings, and that's why it's just so vital that as parents, as siblings, as just Muslims in general,
be aware.
Be aware.
We've talked about this before. You have to put on these glasses that have this aqidah lens on it.
Perspective, yeah.
You have to be able to look at what someone is saying and analyze it critically from the framework of what Islam has given you. Because at the end of the day, people might call us robots, and we're proud to be Islamic robots. We love and we hate for the sake of Allah. We only obey and we reject whatever Allah commands us to. We have no problem saying that, because when we say we submit, we really mean that. We have yaqeen that whatever Allah allows for us is good for us. And whatever He prohibits for us is evil and bad for us. There's no doubt about that in our mind. If you doubt that, you have a fundamental problem with your iman. And so I don't have a problem saying I would never follow anything blindly. I'm a very skeptical person. I criticize everything. But when it comes to Allah and His Messenger, there's no room for that. I'm proudly a robot saying, hey, if the Prophet said this is going to happen, it's going to happen. If this is what's wrong, it is wrong. There's no if about it. And that mentality needs to be, like, I don't care how much I empathize with someone. I can empathize and say, oh, I feel bad for that person. But in reality, I feel bad they're going to go burning in hellfire. That's what I should really feel bad about. I should feel bad that Allah didn't give them hidayah. That's the worst thing that could happen to them. Forget about the fact that they didn't get to love who they wanted to love. Who cares about that? That's temporary. You're going to be burning in the hellfire. Like, I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a real issue.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We don't want that for anybody.
And when you, but that can only come if you put things in perspective, because revelation puts your emotions in check. And we know that because, for example, the example of Sayyidina Nuh, where his son doesn't jump on the ark with him. Allah tells him, he's not your family. Put your emotions aside. I told you, don't ask me about it again. And what did he say? He acknowledges it. And he says, you know what? I agree, my Lord. Don't have mercy on me or forgive me for that, right? But it's important to see that the naql, the revelation as a believer, should check everything that you think about, even you feel, your emotion. Like, for example, and this is on a minute fundamental level, when you are a parent and you see your child sleeping, it's Fajr time, and you say, I love him, I don't want to wake him up because it's Fajr, he was sleeping late last night, that's you harming your child. If you love them, you're going to wake them up for Fajr and say, I fear the hellfire for you, wake up. And that's the role of a Muslim, and especially I'm speaking to men. We are qawam. A lot of men say, "Oh, we have one above women. We're maintainers and providers, and we're stronger than women." Yeah, but that strength comes that comes with responsibility. If you're acting irresponsibly in that role, you're questioned. Like, the fact that you didn't wake your child up for Fajr because you felt bad, or you let your wife convince you that he slept late, that's bad leadership. That's bad qawama. That's the shaitan taking over your family for you. Right? And that's the mentality. You can only have that perspective if you have those lenses on, if you have that view.
What do you say to Muslims who might think or say that we need to go ally with the right to counter this?
Absolutely dumb. Listen, both left and right, they both want assimilation from you. The right wants to assimilate to their Christian, right-wing, American, secular values, however they define it. The left wants you to adopt and assimilate to this new left-wing agenda where they want to radically transform society. Now, do I think that one has a less dire consequence than the other? Yes. I mean, I think right now the right might want to kill you in this dunya, take your money, kick you out of the country, whatever, physically harm you. But the left is going to kill your akhirah. You're going to end up in Jahannam if you follow the left.
I met a Nigerian minister when I went for Umrah, and he kind of told, like, we were outside the hotel, and after iftar everybody just goes out for fresh air, and I was there for 8 days, and I started to get to know this guy, and then one day he opened up, he's like, oh, I'm part of the political entourage of the foreign minister, and I'm this minister, and I want to send my son to America. What do you think? And I'm like, okay, it's very dangerous because your son's going to be exposed to a lot of things that he might not be in Nigeria, and
especially in the circles of elites.
Right. So, but he basically said, oh, why is that? And then he asked me, like, oh, what do you think about Obama? What do you think about Trump? And I said the same thing you just said. I said, you know what? One's going to steal your akhirah, one's going to ruin your dunya.
But, coming back to this point, I always get asked, especially in the show, are you guys, red pill? And I'm like, no. I prefer, honestly, to call myself a green pill, like the right, meaning that I have my own principles. I don't agree with the left and the right on everything. I'm an issue-based person. I understand that there are certain things the left may say that I agree with Islam that I can agree with, and there's things that they're going to say that are against Islam that I categorically reject.
Sure.
Same thing with the right. There's going to be things that they say that are in line with my beliefs. There are going to be things that they do that are not in line with my beliefs. I fundamentally believe this is important to teach to children and people in general, the ummah in general. The ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is an ummah that should be an example and stand on its own merit.
Yep.
We are radically different than everybody and everything. When Rasulullah came to Mecca, to the Quraysh, the pagan mushriks of Mecca, he came to be radically different than them.
Yep.
When he came to them, he came to transform their entire pagan society. How they got married, how they did business, what they preferred in terms of women or boys, or girls or boys, or how they did, how they treated the poor, how they dealt with racism, how they prayed to their God. Every aspect of society was challenged. And even when it came to Ahl al-Kitab, in the beginning, the Prophet tried to first include the Jews. He would say, look how similar we are. We have this God. We believe in the revelation. We believe in the prophets. We believe in the day after, all this stuff. And when he realized how disobedient and insolent these Jews were, he did everything possible to distinguish himself from them. They fast on this day, I won't fast on this day. They fasted today, I'm going to fast the day today and the day after. They wear their clothes like this, I'm going to wear it different. They part their hair this way, I'm going to part it the other way. Oh, they trim their mustache and grow, I'm going to grow my beard. Everything to be different from them. They're taking this path, I'm going to take the other path.
Sure.
Right? Because the Muslim is supposed to be unique. And how is the Muslim supposed to be a guide and one who encourages people to do good and forbid evil and be the example for the nations if he's trying to follow other nations?
Right. So here's what my take on it. That I agree with everything you said there. There's an additional danger. Do you not see the social fabric of America ripping?
Sure.
If you have half the family Republican, half the family Democrat, they hate each other's guts. They will very begrudgingly get together on Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, whatever it is. Very begrudgingly just tolerate each other once a year for grandma's birthday, for grandpa's birthday, the funeral, uncle's funeral, aunt's funeral. Okay, I just got to, put on the suit and stand next to them, next to the graveyard for 10 minutes, and then I won't see them for another 2 years. Okay. Yeah. What is it that our leadership doesn't see, that when you're going to invite the blue and red onto the member, you're going to reflect that divide back onto your Jamaat, the congregation that came there. Don't do that. You're and that's already happening. Like, it's happening in our families, that you have Republican Muslims and you got Democrat Muslims. You got PTI, MQM, and whatever the PTI, PPP. This democracy stuff is tearing our families apart. Just in our musalla, like, nobody talks to each other because the dire situation of the Muslims worldwide is so bleak. And the solution that people have are these secular political parties. So now, if they were to talk to each other, like, what do you think we should do about it? They come from these, from the solutions that democracy and secularism give them, which is like, whatever it is, go to the IMF or go vote or this and that. And now they just differ on all that. When they differ on all that, it's just like, oh, bro, you're cool. I'll eat a samosa with you, have a chai with you. But I can't really gel with you because we don't agree on this stuff. If we were to holistically make the Quran and Sunnah the basis of our actions and what we believe in and what we measure to be success and failure, these divisions will go away. And what I fear for our people is that we are inviting the problems by our own hands. Like, we're inviting the wolf into the henhouse. And it's happening in front of us. Like, I never thought, growing up here in the 80s, I never thought I would see this day come. Yeah. Like, my dad has never even mentioned a vulgarity in front of us. For him to see this stuff on TV or whatever, like, if we want to watch, like, a soccer game together, and, like, we can't do anything anymore because the fahisha is everywhere. Like, he can't watch a cartoon with the, like, we can't do anything. Like, there's just that haya between the generation before us and the generation below us has grown so wide.
You know, I was just thinking like my mother, mashallah, right now is like 82 or something like that. She has no idea what all this is about.
Really?
I mean, if I were to go explain to her that people believe that there's another gender besides like male and female, she just wouldn't be able to compute. Like, can't compute. Like,
I asked my aunt 2 weeks ago.
she has no idea that there's people out there who believe in XE, XA, ZE, ZA, whatever the hell these things are. Yeah, have no idea. Like, she doesn't fathom that. Like, if you told my mom, like, if my mom went to some woke place and she would be so canceled because of the fact that she said he, she, them, or you know, he, her, him, right? She would understand. She's like, if someone told her I'm non-binary, she would legit not understand what you're talking about.
Right.
She's like, what do you mean? Like, you have a mental problem? Like, what do you mean? Like, what's non-binary? Like,
so I have an aunt who's like 50, you know, maybe 55, I think.
Yeah.
I was like asking her the other day, like, Auntie, do you not understand what that is? And she's like, Beta, ye kya hai? She was asking me, like, I was driving her somewhere, and she was like, oh, what is this? I'm like, you don't know what that is? And she's like, no, I see it everywhere. What is it? And then I explained to her, you know, this is like the whole Lut alayhi salam qawm, it's all coming back. Are you aware of this? She's like, no. What are you talking about? let me call your brother and ask him, because you obviously don't know him. Like, wow. She's not hating.
But like, low key, I envy that innocence.
Yeah, oh, of course, absolutely, man. That's
I mean, like, just
dude,
that
remember when we grew up in IFS
not
together,
being able
bro?
to realize that a world could succumb to such disgusting behavior. Like, you can't even like, I mean, in their mind, they can't even fathom that people would think or behave that way.
Dude, we grew up together.
Yeah.
We went to IFS together.
Yeah.
What did we do? We played basketball at night. We run around, do crazy stuff, right? May Allah grant so much sadaqah and hasanah to all the people that had sabr with us, right? Just goof around, flush the toilets, break stuff, get into fights, right? Like, for what, 20 years we were like, you know, every Ramadan we would all see, like 80 guys, we would see each other every night for 30 days, right? We didn't care about any of this stuff, right? It was great. We had such fond childhood memories, such personal development and closeness, right? That these relationships have lasted. We had a real community for 40 years. And now, you know, now what? Now it's like, everybody's scared.
And the best part was that we were in the masjid. Maybe we weren't making ibadah, but we were attached to the masjid. We look forward to going to the masjid.
There was a love there between us, right? Even though it's like we sometimes fought. I know everybody I got into a fight with, but I still love those guys, right? If you did 1% of what we did, there would be cops everywhere. There would be lawsuits, board members fighting. You know, it's like, what, you know, what has this progress, like, how could you call it progress? What has this brought us to? Like, the innocence, that's, you know, just to go back on why, when you said that you're jealous of that innocence, I am too, you know. It's like, I wish my kids could enjoy what we enjoyed, right? And we have so much more material wealth. Like, I gotta, you know, like, you know, we've seen in terms of pure material, it's increased in our lives, you know. Like, you never thought of having 2 fridges in your house back in the 80s. Never. Now it's like 2 is like the bare minimum. 2 TVs was a big deal. Yeah. If you had 2 TVs, no way.
If you had a cell phone.
Oh, cell phone was, yeah.
You were balling.
Oh, yeah. Like, you were a millionaire if you had a cell phone. You know, even if you had 2 cars.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And these things are necessities now.
Like, just saying a bedroom with your bathroom attached to it? Or something
that was
only
huge,
master,
dude.
Like only a master suite had that.
If you're a doctor in Oak
Yeah.
Brook.
But I'm saying, but like, I mean, just these things that you would talk about, like, or even just taking a vacation.
Oh yeah, sure. Besides going back to India or Pakistan,
but just taking a legit like family vacation.
Right, that was such a big deal.
Like
right.
maybe once in like 5, 6 years, 7 years. Like maybe you got lucky enough to go to like the Ozarks or like Wisconsin Dells or something like.
Right.
You know,
Great
I mean,
America was a big deal.
Yeah. Like, but I mean, I just want people to realize that. I want you young people to understand something, that envision this, that when we were growing up, our biggest debates were about, when we got of age, were like, oh, are you like Sufi or Salafi, right? Like that was the thing, right? And then even this idea of like, I remember like even politics was like this thing that, like people were like, are you like? It was a big thing. Like, why would you want to be in politics? Like people were like, they never understood it. Like, why would you want to? Like, yeah, fine. Some councilman would come to the masjid and say, yeah, give me my vote. But no one really cared. Like, Muslims didn't come and show up and vote.
Nobody cared.
Yeah. And then, like, the idea of, like, even I remember growing up, like, even if you were, like, if you were a cop or wanted to work for the army or, like, the intelligence, people look at you like, are you stupid? Like, why would you do that? Like no one, but nowadays it's, like, it's such a, like, a...
It's praised.
Like, I just find my neighbor who's a Muslim, I just find he's the sheriff today. Right? And I'm like, I'm not trying to knock on them, but I'm saying that, but the way we grew up, our innocence, our wala was so strong that we knew that it was us and them.
Yeah, we invite them.
That us and them
right,
mentality
yeah.
has been taken away from us because they wanted people to assimilate and to see, not be otherized. So they thought, hey, let's be like them. But we grew up in an area where we were proud to be different than them. Like, I remember we went to an elementary school together. We would see, like, kafir kids just kind of cross the path, and cut across to go home. We would scream from the window, kafir on the... Remember, we would scream from the window. And it was like this thing. By the way, I'm not saying that we should go and antagonize kuffar, but I'm giving you the idea that that's how
there
much
was an identity.
that we had. We had identity,
right.
that we were Muslim, and we don't care. I mean, dude, we had Afghan mujahideen in our masjid that were recruiting to go to Afghanistan. This one was sanctioned by the U.S. government, by the way.
Right.
We had in Bosnia, where in Bosnia they were coming to, and this sanctioned by the U.S. government to go out. They would come here, get treatment, and while they were treating, they would recruit, get funding, whatever. And we grew, and this kind of brought this sentiment of, oh, it's the Muslims uniting.
It's a global identity.
Right.
It's a global Islamic
feel their
identity.
pain. They feel our pain. They felt comfortable enough to come here and sit and sleep in our masjid and have confidence that we're going to give them money and that we're going to give them care. Like that idea of, like, that bond is no longer there anymore.
It's not. And that's it's.
And that's part of the innocence.
The wala al-bara. It's really jeopardized. And that's part of the whole secularism narrative, that it's not just LGBTQ, it's many other things. It's your identity. It's
like you're American.
Right, you're American.
And I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but their version of American is not the same as when I say I'm an American. I'm an American by jinsiyya, meaning I'm born here, I have certain rights granted because I was born here by those people, right? It's not that it's something that I'm meaning that I'm not an embodiment of American values and ideas.
Sure.
Right? I may be affected by them because we were raised here, right? I mean, certain cultural parameters, yes. Right. But I don't wake up every morning and be like, hell yeah, red, white, and blue. Like, we're American exceptionalism. Like, No, we don't have that paradigm. We understand the only thing perfect is Islam.
Right.
It just so happens right now that we're Muslims in an American place.
Right.
But we can be Muslim anywhere in the world.
Yeah, see, that's clear for me in my head.
Yeah.
I have to explain that to my kids.
Yeah.
We are Muslims. That's it. We're Muslims. That's it. They're like, but we live in America. And I'm like, yeah. And we are, by our passport and our birth certificates, we agree to live by the laws of this land.
Yeah.
And our national identity is American, but our true identity is we're Muslim and we're part of a global ummah. And
mind blowing.
We're so disconnected over here.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I see those messages about Aqsa and Yemen and Sudan and whatever else, like Uyghurs and stuff, that they need to come back.
It's not just a hashtag for us.
It's not.
It means something.
Our blood is one. Our emotions and our love for each other. When one part of this ummah hurts, the ummah is like one body. When one part of it hurts, the rest of it feels the pain.
Yeah.
That the more we get disconnected from the aqidah, the more we form this like identity of that. What does it mean to be a Muslim in a secular narrative? It's just this like, oh, I adopt these values of justice that have been cultured into me by the media that I consume. Right?
Pseudo justice, because really real justice comes from Allah.
Right, the true justice is from Allah.
Like your parameters of justice are arbitrary. Like it means nothing to me.
Selective and arbitrary.
Selective outrage, and I mean, my nephew asked me. We had the same conversation. He's like, yeah, but we're Muslims in America. We're American too. I'm like, so I try to dumb it down. I'm like, listen, how old is Islam? It's a trick question, and I'm like, he's like, well, it's from Adam, from forever. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's not just 400 years old, but I'm like, and how old is America? He's like, I don't know, about 200 some years old. I'm like, so if America can be here today and gone tomorrow, Islam has always been here.
Right.
So my identity is what's always been here.
Right.
Is the identity of a Muslim.
And it was given to me by Allah.
Yeah.
The one who created me, and I want to be raised on the Day of Judgment as a Muslim. Yeah. I don't want to be raised. I'm
not going to be asked about what my jinsiyah was, what my nationality was, or anything. Right. What I identify with as male or female or binary or non-binary or gender or whatever.
We have the hadith about asabiya. Leave it; it's rotten. And that takes place. It manifests in many different ways nowadays, whether you're tribal or your national identity or your...
It can be even in political, like you said, Democrat and Republican. Right. That is asabiya. Yeah. When you're willing to raise another person's values and flags or merits over your own brother, you prefer that over... You prefer to align with those things instead of Islam, that is asabiya.
Right.
It's unsuriya. Like you're trying to say there's something other, something better that's unite over.
No, and that's why it's so paramount that we bring back the connection of our identity and akhirah and our belief into the pulpit, into our khutbahs and our discourse. That if we don't, there's going to be like this new. It's not that there's going to be. There already is a perverted, identity, and it's manifested in this Reclaiming Islam article. Like this, their aqidah is what they consume from the what they consume from the media, and what the feelings and values that have been cultured into them, versus what has Allah given me. Yeah. What am I commanded to believe in? What is the meaning of submission? What are the ahkam that I'm supposed to submit to and act upon and invite towards? Yeah. And that I would look forward to an everlasting Jannah, forgiveness from my Lord on the Day of Judgment. This is all being taken away from us, and I can't sit back and watch and let this happen. I mean, I can do the best for my kids, right? But there's a whole bunch of there's 10 million Muslims in this country. And there's, 2 billion Muslims in the world. And yesterday, on the previous podcast, we were talking about the Biden grant into Pakistan. That Biden grant isn't just limited to Pakistan. That Biden grant grants money to teachers who are willing to teach Afghani children.
And Pakistani.
Pakistani. That's if you open it up, unpack it. There's a special clause in there
called gender studies.
Whatever it is, it's like
and trans rights.
Trans rights,
where the people who are willing to teach English to trans rights activists, or the movement. So basically, what they're trying to do is effectively build this coalition of English-speaking trans freaks in Pakistan who can then be the voice and communicate. Why is that?
To Afghanis.
But not only that.
To Afghanis interjected over there.
But also they're going to be teaching them English. Why? Because now they can communicate with the other trans freaks across the world and influence each other. Oh, look at us, we're trans, and hello, I'm from Pakistan, I'm a trans. Like, the whole thing, you know what I mean? Like, oh, look, because the normal trans freak here can't just Google Urdu. He doesn't know what's going on over there. Right? Then, great, I found this Pakistani trans guy. Let's communicate, let's interview him. And now they overrepresent the whole thing.
And they're following the same playbook, too, with the Pakistani dramas.
Yes.
Right?
We saw the ad. Where they're like, Beta, I'm always going to love you no matter what you are.
Right, but you have to pick
whatever kapra you want to wear. What kind of nonsense is this?
Right. Well, so they're doing that under the guise of hermaphrodites, right? First so they're giving legal cover to all the people who want to do this fahisha, that hey, you can do this by claiming the condition of being a hermaphrodite. Like, it's legal cover.
And we know that hermaphrodite case or amount of...
It's like 0.01.
0.01. Like, why is it that the only place in Pakistan in the world where like 20% of the is hermaphrodite all of a sudden now, right? I mean, like I'm just saying, like how did the concentration of hermaphrodites happen in Pakistan?
Right.
Where it's like in the whole global occurrence is like 0.001%.
Right.
Did it happen to all be in Pakistan?
Right. Exactly.
Who are you fooling?
Exactly.
Do you know? And like the idea here is that you can call it what you want to call it, but you can't fool people all of the time, right? People are gonna realize that you're justifying something, and you know what? At the end of the day, you think you're winning. Like this is the funny part. You think you're winning. You think you're becoming progressive, and you're gonna win maybe some aid money, some IMF funding, some foreign funding. But in the end, it's gonna come back and bite you. It's gonna destroy you, your family, your entire country, your nation. It's gonna destroy it, and you have no one to blame but yourself if you adopt it.
So I talk to Pakistan every day. My Quran teacher is from Pakistan. I talk to him 4 times a week. I shouldn't say every day, but 4 times a week. On average, and I get the updates, what's going on in Karachi.
Yeah.
Like, there's swaths of Karachi that don't have gas.
Yeah.
They have to wait for the
electricity. Some people can't get generators. They have no electricity for hours upon hours.
This is a city that produces natural gas. They have natural gas mines in its proximity. Yeah. It's so unbelievably not just corrupt but incompetent that they have to go there periodically and check the stove to see if it turns on. Now, whenever that time is that the stove turns on and they can smell the gas, they better light and cook. Like if you fall asleep, you're not going to be able to cook your food
until the next day or
whatever. Yeah. Right now, if you got kids to feed and they have to go to school, how
do you function?
How do you function?
Yeah.
He's like,
how do you have a normal functioning society when basic requirements are not met? And the
this
sad
is one
part,
of the largest cities. Like, what's the population of Karachi? Let's look it up.
It's got to be something like 20 million, maybe 10 million. It's huge. Like 10 maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 million. I don't know. Like on the greater, I don't know. I could be wrong about that. Maybe
no. 14.9 million people. That was in 2017. Yeah. That was the last.
So I visited Karachi in 2018, and that place is crowded. Like it is absolutely crowded. But here's the sad part.
17.2 million now.
Pakistan is a nation that has a lot of natural resources. Actually, to be fair, and Balochistan has the largest copper reserves in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
But because of political reasons and asabiya, again, I'm Punjabi, I'm Balochi, I'm Pathan, I'm Muhajir, I'm Sindhi, I'm Hindko, they can't come to an agreement. Politicians exploit that difference and they use them, manipulate them, take their money and run away. And there are a bunch of people that if Pakistan collapses tomorrow, all of these degenerate politicians have homes and estates in Canada, UK, America. They will run free and nothing will happen to them, but Pakistan will deteriorate. And you know what the biggest problem is? Is that this was done intentionally. Pakistan is a country that has a fuel independence problem, meaning they have natural mine gas, right. they have gas mines, but they don't have like petroleum. But here's the crazy part: 10 kilometers away from the border of Balochistan, massive oil repositories.
Right.
And so, but what do? They effectively divided the country so that each country will be somehow dependent upon something.
Yeah. So I just pulled up a website here, like the largest gold and copper mines in Pakistan. I'm just going to click back here.
I told you, in Balochistan.
12.3 million tons of copper and 20.9 million ounces of gold. You know, like, well, you can't...
That's like some metric tons, yeah, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, like, there is no excuse for the sheer incompetence.
But that asabiya is what stops them. Like I don't know if you know when you talk to a Quran teacher, ask them. The thing that they did is that you have Baloch, you have Hindko, you have Pathan, you have Kashmiri, you have Muhajir, you have Sindhi, you have Punjabi, you have all these different groups of people that all want to arbitrate for their own people. They don't view themselves as one Pakistan. Sure, they might, but at the very core level, a lot of these people, especially these political movements, they exploit that one ethno group is their majority follower. And so they're all going to advocate for what. And to be honest, a lot of people.
And it goes back to
the dynamics. Exactly. The dynamics that Punjabis have a control of a lot, and everybody else is kind of being crapped on because they have the seat of the power, Islamabad, Lahore, or whatever. But again, it comes back to the Asabiya that, oh, we don't want them to get one edge, or they're oppressing us, or even the one that is oppressing us saying, hey, we're better than you. We belong to this group, right? And so because of that, they're tied down.
Yeah. And this is subhanAllah, like, whether you talk about the Mongols or the British Empire, it's the same thing. It's like that. It's the same trick being played over and over again. Yeah. That's just going to, like, wake up, snap out of it. You used to rule the world at one point in time, just let this go and go back to your belief that your Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave you. And that's really what boggles me. The other day, we had on the previous episode, we had the Sheikh on, and he was saying that he's got some WhatsApp groups with very influential Pakistani scholars. Yeah. And he said he was criticizing them, saying that why haven't you guys been fighting back? Yeah. On these LGBTQ issues, and they're like, we did, and we passed a measure, and the measure was sent to the secular Supreme Court and thrown out. Yeah. And I said, what gives a secular Supreme Court the right to overrule the Sharia? And this is where the fundamental problem lies, that we need to understand this secularism as kufr. That when we do, and we take our aqidah the way it's supposed to be taken, we understand the asabiyah to be something forbidden for us, and we unite upon what is going to grant us Jannah and Tawheed and the love of Allah between believers, that, it's not just LGBTQ that's going to get it's everything. When we start living by Allah's laws and His belief in Him and how He wants us to submit and carry the deen to the world, it's afiyah and contentment in this life. It's success in the akhirah. It's ibadah to Allah. And if we don't teach Islam in this manner, the new generation will not buy, like the Gen Zers. They ask questions. They're not colonized minds. They don't just say, oh, this is haram, this is halal, and I just follow. Yeah. They're going to ask questions. They're going to say that, well, okay, if you want me to say LGBTQ is haram, then you have to give me
the breakdown.
You have to give me the breakdown. You have to take it back to secularism. And then if you say, okay, well, secularism is haram or asabiyah is haram, then what is it that we do unite on? Yeah. And if you're not going to give them what we unite upon, then they're going to be like, well, you don't have any intellectual integrity because you're telling me all this stuff is haram, and you're telling me that this Quran is a book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained every matter. This is the ayah in the Quran that in the book is every matter explained clearly. But now you're not giving me how to live my life. Yeah. I can't buy what you're saying. I can't believe in this because you don't make sense. Yeah. So it is so important. Like, if we take anything away from these discussions, that we have to get back to teaching Islam the way it is.
Start in your homes. Don't depend on your foundation Sunday school or your just part-time classes or summer camp. You parents need to be the active, practicing examples in the household. If you want your children to grow up with Islam, you have to actively present that in the household and have discussions. And they need to see you taking action on what you say. You can't just say, oh, don't do that, and then they see you doing it. It doesn't work that way. You can't assume that they understand everything because you understand it. You have to teach them. Your job as a parent is to teach them. Yeah,
you have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yes. And I just want to, before we kind of close this one out, I just want to mention this one thing that should bring some perspective to people. There was a study done by a particular family that was of Lebanese origin, and they talk about, because the Lebanese people were some of the early migrants to this country. They came in the 1900s. Mm-hmm. A couple waves. This particular family was a Muslim family, and the Muslim one in this family did a survey about from the 1900s to now, like in 2023, about religion and everything in the family. Out of the 200 people that were still around now, his relatives that you can find, right? I think something like I think only like 15 of them or 20 are Muslims. The rest of them have lost their religion completely, either atheist or a different religion, or have no religion, agnostic, whatever it may be. And that's in a period of, in 100 years maybe. So maybe 2 generations, if that.
What was Spain? Do you know what Spain was after Islam left Spain?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm saying this is happening in America. I mean, this is a guy currently in 2023.
Yeah.
He's talking about his own family, about Lebanese people that came here in 1900s.
Yeah, I mean, we you know, I was working with the guy. I had, you know, he had like a Muslim name, right? But he wouldn't say anything Islamic. He'd be like talking about drinking stuff, and then he's telling me, oh, he's going back to Albania for a wedding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that's nice. You know, and I never took him to be a Muslim, right? But then he shows me like, oh yeah, this is his niece or whatever getting married, and they're all wearing hijab. And I'm like, they're Muslim. He's like, yeah, they're Muslim. Like, I'm like, so what's going on? He's like, yeah, that's all back home stuff, man. You know, how many times do we run into this now? You know, it's just it's become normal.
So the reason why we're mentioning this is because it is a very real threat. It only takes one generation. I can even say examples of my own family where people prioritized the secular way, like education and finance, over religion. And I can tell you their grandchildren, like their children were Muslim by name, or at least in some practices, but their grandchildren are, and I mean legitimately kuffar, like legit kuffar, like kafir. Like they tell you, I don't believe in this, or I don't have a religion. And that it just takes one generation, one generation to eradicate Islam from your generation.
You're not alone. You know, I think we're seeing that in many families.
Yeah.
And,
so it's a real threat. We have, and in order to combat that, it has to be active parenting. And
the parents have to get their religion from somewhere, right?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Active,
they have to get the right knowledge.
If you want to teach, you have to know what the subject material is.
Right.
You have to be what they call in our world the SME, subject matter expert. Right. You have to be able to have that. Right. If you're not, then you're teaching them nonsense.
Right.
Right.
So on that, like the key skill that the parents need is that So how do they discern who's right and who's wrong? Like, how do they know that reclaiming Islam is wrong and navigating differences is right? So how do they discern? So what my nasiha is that you have to go back to Quran and Sunnah. You have to go back to the Hadith, and you have to make sure that it accurately reflects the reality. You have to go back to traditional scholars, and you need that connection. You need to put that hard work in. You need to go back, learn the deen. You need to study those classical works that and see who reflects that, and who's teaching me what Ibn Taymiyyah taught, who's teaching me what Imam Ghazali taught, who's teaching me what the four the four schools, the four Mujtahideen taught. The Hanafi, Maliki, and Shafi'i, and
there's an easy way to summarize that. Stick the Jama'ah. The Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah mean that we embody those at 1,400 years of tradition, and we have fiqh and maybe some aqidah differences, but generally we're considered to be Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Right. We're considered to be people who unite upon Islam and upon Allah and His Messenger. Right. And if you can trace it back to that foundational, like a cornerstone, you're going to be fine. Right? You're not going to have some crazy belief that's going to take care of the fold of Islam. Sure, you might have some differences in understanding, but again, we know the ulama are accountable for what they say, and they're rewarded for intention or for whatever it may be. But you're never going to have some kind of crazy deviant belief that is going to take you out of the fold of Islam. Right? So stick to the Jama'ah. I understand you may not have time to study in-depth topics. Maybe you're busy, whatever it may be. But stick to the Jama'ah. Understand, there are certain essential principles that you have to teach your children: how to pray, who is Allah, who is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what are the stories of the Anbiya, how to make ghusl, tahara. All these things you have to learn. You have to know those basics because you even need them for yourself. Right? Teach that to them. And get that from the source that is from within the Jama'ah.
So look, there was no concept during the Prophet ﷺ time. The framework was tawheed and shirk, right? These are the mushrikeen, and these are the muwahideen, right? That has taken on new faces nowadays, right? Now it's the capitalists, the secularists, the you still have those polytheists.
There's perennialists who don't even know if you can call a Christian a kafir. Like what?
Right. So now it's really come down to identifying what is my belief. You really need to know that very clearly, and you have to know what isn't belief, and you have to guard against it. You have to guard against the secular.
Aqidah, like you mentioned.
Right.
Aqidah is how you know that.
Right.
Who is Allah and what does He demand of you? What are His rights and what are your rights to Him?
Absolutely.
Right? And that is something that is fundamental to everyone. See, people don't realize something. Allah is not something. Okay, we can logically come to the conclusion by aql that Allah is there by necessity, meaning that we can recognize that we have a creator.
Mm-hmm.
But to know who Allah
We need
is
wahi.
and to know what He demands of you requires wahi.
Right.
We can't just speculate.
Right.
Because we would never know Allah is Al-Ghafur Rahim if He didn't tell us.
Right.
We would never know He's Shadidul Iqab.
Any of those
severe
small
punishment.
right.
This is what some of the kuffar have a problem with. Do you really think do you think God would be so petty that He would punish a guy for just loving somebody? Yeah, I do, because He's Shadidul Iqab. He says this is fawahish.
Well, I wouldn't say He's petty. I would.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
no, I'm saying they say that,
yeah,
right?
They say that,
so I'm
right.
saying they say, do you think He's so petty that He would just punish people for
Right.
for loving love is love, right?
Love is
And I'm
love.
like, God would punish because it's not petty to Him. He tells us it's not petty.
We love what Allah loves, and we
no,
hate
but what I'm
Allah
saying is that
hates.
He tells you it's not petty.
Yeah, what's petty to you is not petty to Him.
And we know that
How
because
do you define what is petty?
because He tells us it's
Right,
not petty.
right.
He tells us it's fawahish.
Right.
It's a big thing.
He flipped the city upside down
Right.
and crushed it and killed
So
its inhabitants.
your priority,
so it's
Mr.
not petty.
Luthi, you little freak, is not the reality.
Right.
Allah is the only reality.
Right.
Meaning His reality is the only reality.
Right.
There's no arbitrary measure here.
Right.
It's Allah or nothing.
Al-Haqqa, right?
Yeah. So this is what we're trying to say. So, but you can only know that if you go into naql, into revelation, divine revelation, and the history of scholarship that we have, and understanding of these verses and hadith, and that is the only way you can come to that. And so, if you want to have a solid grounding and understanding, and you want to know what you pass on to your children, study that material.
You have to
at least
open
have a
up your
basic
Quran,
understanding of it.
Start reading
because
Quran with your kids.
at the very
Start reading
least,
tafsir.
you should be able to say, hey, I don't know what the Islamic position on that is. I don't know why it is that way. But whatever Allah says is correct. Even if I don't think something makes sense, there's a deficiency in my understanding and knowledge and not with the revelation.
Right.
You should start with that mindset. The only way you can get to that mindset is if you know who Allah is.
You know, they poison you from childhood, like with these, or the age of Aisha radiallahu anha, and why does Islam allow this and that? What's contrary to their beliefs and values? To like poke these holes. You know, we experience this in school. We experience this in the discourses with our professors and our teachers, and you know, so we were able to like go back and say, no, I want to read what you know, what did Ahmadidat say? What did, you know, we grew up with that, so we would go back and like see what is the response to this, because we had,
and we were genuinely curious, because why? Because we had that genuine belief that no, Islam has an answer.
Absolutely, and
we weren't skeptical about it. We weren't. Okay, let me just understand this. Our yaqeen, we were brought up with this yaqeen that it's an impossibility that Islam could have any flaw with it.
Right. We were taught that from childhood,
like,
there's nothing wrong with Islam.
Like, if you don't get it, it's your something
fault.
wrong with you.
You need to go back and find the right answer.
But nowadays, their ideas challenge everything. Oh, this might be a patriarchal understanding. Yeah. This might be some misinterpretation. It might be, you know, whatever it may be, right? There could be a possibility that all this is the Matrix or whatever, the stupid thing they say, right? I mean, well, who cares what it is? But for us, it was Islam is the only pure, unadulterated, perfect thing that we have.
Right.
And nothing can prove it wrong, and nothing will ever prove it wrong.
Right.
And when you approach it with that mindset, there's always an answer.
When we were kids, our grandma taught us very clearly that the challenge in the Quran is that it's a book that can't be duplicated, and that if the Quraysh of Makkah were the greatest poets and writers, in the Arabian Peninsula, in the Hijaz at the time, if they could not produce three verses that match it, then it must be the word of Allah. Sure. So what I teach my kids is that, well, Islam forbids many things that capitalism thrives on. Riba. Islam forbids
exploitation of labor.
Right.
Materialism.
All this, the alcohol, the pig, right? Yeah. So I told my kids mortgages, right? Stocks, financing, so many things. So I told my kids, don't you think that if the West can prove to Muslims that the Quran is a fake book, a man-made religion, if Islam is a man-made religion, don't you think they, with all the hundreds of trillions of dollars that they have, all the resources that they have, don't you think that they would want to open up the capital markets of the Muslim world? Don't you think they want to sell Oscar Mayer hot dogs in the Middle East? Don't you think they want to sell
pork rinds
and Budweiser and mortgages that get you into debt for 30 years? Don't you think they want to sell all that in Pakistan and all across to 2 billion Muslims who reject this? Yeah. It's like, yeah, obviously they would. So then, wouldn't it be worth their while to go out and hire some Arabic expert linguists and say, concoct us a book that matches the beauty of the Quran, so we can once and for all prove that it's a man-made book, and that we can open up all these capital markets and make a boat ton of money. Yeah. Right? It's a great incentive, right? Money there. There's no other better incentive than that.
From a purely capitalistic perspective,
do it. Get all you capitalists, go and find the best linguists from the best universities. Use all the AI tools you got now. Use your ChatGPT. Use all of it and concoct a book. The 3 verses, like the Quran, and prove it wrong.
If they could do it, it would be a great return on investment.
It would be a great ROI. Thank you. And they can't. And if the Quraysh of Makkah were not able to, then I don't think ChatGPT and the greatest linguists from from all over the world and any amount of money can get together and do it. And this is why, as non-Arabic speakers, we take the Quran as the unadulterated word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, revealed through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Based on that strong intellectual foundation now, I will go out and I will make sure I get the right answer for whatever question they have, right? And this has to be the start. And if there's no way around it, Mort. That's like they're giving our kids a whole secular intellectual framework that manifests itself all the way into their bedrooms. So if you took anything away from our podcast today, please, just that last part is so important. Pray for us. We pray for you. We want Jannah for everybody. We invite everybody to Islam. Mort, how can my audience reach you if they have questions?
No, just you know what? Just tune into the Mad Mamluks. We're always live there. But I think you can, if you want to reach out to me directly, the Muzzy Buzz Show at gmail.com. I think Muzzy Buzz Show at gmail.com. But just tune into the Mad Mamluks. I'm always there live. So you can find me on different platforms.
Aren't you on TikTok as well now?
Yeah, TikTok. I mean, I'm everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. I think it was just at Mort TMM. Facebook. I mean, you can just reach
at Mort TMM.
Yeah, you can find me anywhere. I'm always open for a good discussion. If you think I said something today that doesn't line up, if you are one of those liberal woke people and you think you have a great argument, hit me up. I enjoy a discussion because I enjoy being challenged because it helps me refine my argument. So if you have any concerns about what I said, feel free to hit Irfan up or hit me up, and I'll be happy to
leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment. I'll be happy to have a discussion with you because I firmly believe that Islam is the truth and it has an answer for everything. And whatever Islam says, it can be proven not only from a moral perspective but even from a spiritual perspective. And there's no shyness in that for us. So I invite you to open the Quran, to read it, to study it, to take it with an open mind, because at the very least, the Quran is a book that even if you don't accept Islam, you will have guidance and goodness from it no matter what. And it's a type of book that we read As much as I've read it all the time and complete the Quran and memorize, and every time we open the Quran, we take some new benefit from it, even for someone who's memorized the Quran. So we invite you guys to do that and to come closer to the words of your Creator and reflect on that, because there's no greater feeling and victory in this entire universe than becoming a believer and being saved on that day when you will be questioned about everything and everything that you did. And so we invite you to Islam if you are non-Muslim, and if you are a Muslim that proclaims to be a Muslim, and you have some of these kufri beliefs, we invite you to come back to the Quran and the Sunnah, come back to divine revelation, and shun your hawa, your desires, and come back to what Allah and His Messenger called you to in the beginning.
I don't think I can say it any better. Jazakallah khair, Mort. I'd love to have you back on again anytime soon.
My pleasure.
With that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.